I'm Ezra Levan. It's May 11th, and you're watching Battleground. Well, you almost caught me off guard there. I tell you, we start right on time when we are live, as we are every weekday, 12 noon Eastern Time to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It's an experiment we've been doing for 2 weeks now. It is a live chit-chat show. There's a word for it called Super Chat. That is how Google calls it. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, you can make a regular comment, and it shows up regularly. I do my best to keep up to them. But for folks who want to really get my attention and ensure that everyone else sees their comment too, you can do what's called a Super Chat for a couple bucks, or some people even chip in 5 or 10. I saw someone earlier chipped in $50. You can pay, and your comment stays in a fluorescent color for a period of time proportionate to the amount of money you get. And we get that dough here at the Rebel. So it helps us keep the lights on and pay for other things that we have to pay for. As you know, we're 100% viewer supported, unlike, say, I don't know, the state broadcaster, the CBC, which gets $1.5 billion a year. So what do we do for this hour every day? Well, Monday to Thursdays, I go through just a few video clips. It's lightly produced. It's not like my 8 p.m. show, which is behind a paywall, very produced, very scripted. This is just chit-chat. And Fridays, we started this tradition last week, is sort of a Friday free-for-all, where I'm just going to really focus on as many comments as possible. That said, just while we build up a few more viewers as people log in, I am going to cover a little bit of news while we get a few more folks watching. As you know, Canada has an open borders crisis. Now, you might be thinking, how could that possibly be? Canada only has a border with the United States on the 49th parallel and with Alaska, and how's that a problem? I mean, if a lot of North Dakotans want to come up north, good people, yeah, come on up, stay if you want. But that's not how it's working. What's happening is, in direct contradiction and sort of a passive-aggressive reaction to Donald Trump's crackdown on illegal immigrants and his executive order limiting migration from Muslim-majority terrorist countries, not all of which are Muslim, by the way. He put North Korea on that list. Justin Trudeau put out a tweet that's been retweeted and liked hundreds of thousands of times saying everyone's welcome in Canada. And so what's happened is that all the people who were going to be deported by Donald Trump, or, I don't know, self-deport to Mexico, instead say, let's go north. I mean, that fool up there is willing to take us. Let's go there. Our odds are better up there than they are in America. Welfare is fatter. Healthcare is fatter. And you got this dopey prime minister who makes open borders a thing. And so we've had tens of thousands, and they're not Americans. They're not Americans at all. They're people who are about to be deported from America, either because in some cases they're criminals. In other cases, they were in America for a short period of time. For example, Haitians, after the Haiti earthquake, were allowed to stay in the United States for a number of years. It's been a number of years now, and that is running out. So Haitians just go to Montreal. Why not? They speak French. Next up, of course, are the Salvadorians, the MS-13. We did a story the other day about how Canada's National Crime Intelligence Agency is telling local police, yeah, the MS-13 gangs are coming. So we're getting the worst of the worst. But I want to read you some related stories about what's really going on. It's just incredible. I want to start with a story from Global News. Can we put that up for a second? Nigerian sex offender wanted in Texas slips into Canada. So just the same way Donald Trump says Mexico's not sending its best, America's not sending its best up here. We're not getting, the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, millennial programmers or engineers or doctors. We're getting the folks, in this case, a Nigerian sex criminal from Texas. I mean, it's not fun to be a sex criminal in Texas. I'm not sure if they still have capital punishment down there. It's not friendly, but up here it's super friendly, and he just walked right in. And even though if you have a bogus refugee application, your odds of it being approved are only about 50%, which, by the way, is far too large. It should be 0%, because no one coming from the United States can, by definition, be a refugee. You're in America. It's not a hostile place. it takes about 2 years to get your hearing. So you have a 100% chance of staying in Canada until your immigration hearing. And of course, while you're in Canada, you're free to move around. So what's the odds that a criminal or a bogus migrant who knows he's here in a false way is going to actually show up for his hearing in 2 years? And if he does show up and he loses the hearing, why on earth would you think he's going to go? So I want to read another story that's in some ways even more infuriating. And it's the next one. It's by Mark Bonikowski of the Ottawa Sun. Can we put that up here? Costs growing for Fed's open door border. And here's a migrant who comes to Canada illegally, of course. And let me just read that. Let me read that headline there. What to make of the case of Taha El Taha, an illegal who entered Canada through the back door of the now infamous unmanned border crossing in Quebec, and discovered days later that he had terminal stage 4 cancer. Oh, he had no idea, guys. He had no idea. And he just discovered that while he came across to Canada. And he goes to the front of the queue. He goes to the front of the line. And of course, you know, Canadians who've been paying into the system our whole lives, they can take a back seat to this fella. Our own poor, our own homeless, our own groups of Canadian society with great health problems, Aboriginal Canadians, for example, whose life expectancy is more than 10 years shorter than other Canadians. You know, they're not as important politically as Muslim migrants sneaking in illegally from the United States to take, I don't know, $250,000 worth of health care in their final months. Why not do it here? We're suckers. But look how our state broadcaster turns these people into heroes. Asylum seeker makes it across the Canadian border only to find out he has stage 4 cancer. Womp, 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 womp. Who knew? And he's a real hero. And Taha El Taha is fighting to bring his family to Canada to be by his side while he undergoes treatment. So it's not just him. Bring the whole bunch of them. He's here illegally. He's here illegally. He came in illegally at an illegal border crossing. His very first act was to defy police and break the law. So obviously he's a hero because he's an illegal Muslim migrant who's about to take $250,000 and he wants to bring the rest of the clan in, and the CBC is thrilled. So that's Canada. It's not just the United States, and Canada has never thought of ourselves as having to have a strong border. Oh my God, we have a border with the United States, the longest undefended border in the world. It's something of great pride. You know, once in a while you got to watch those North Dakotans, but you know, it's nothing. I mean, a few decades ago there were migrant traffickers who would bring boatloads of folks from Sri Lanka. And that was a bit of a challenge, but it was the occasional boat with a few hundred people. These are tens of thousands. And like I say, they are the worst of the worst. They're the tricksters, the hucksters, and in that one case, a Nigerian sex offender. Yeah. All right, well, we have over 100 folks online right now, so I'm going to do what we say we do and make Friday a free-for-all Friday. I'm going to check. I don't see any super chats in there yet. Super chats work if you want your comment to be in a highlighted color. Chip in a couple bucks. I'm just going to go through some stuff. Someone named Lauren Southern, I think that's a male version of Lauren Southern, says, after your show yesterday, I couldn't stop saying El Chupacabra. You know what? I have not yet looked up that word. It might be a naughty word. You know, I didn't know what Despacito meant until much later. That's not a naughty word, but El Chupacabra. Thank you. Insurgents on a Stick says El Muslim Cabra. If anyone knows what Chupacabra means, let me know, because it's such a great word. Marcin Whittle says, could you ask Poles how you respect us because U.S. government is fake now? Right? I don't quite understand that, but I've done a variety of shows on Poland, including, I think it was Donald Trump's big speech there in Poland, which I thought was beautiful. Talking about freedom, and Poland has saved the world on 3 occasions. Poland led the army that smashed the siege of Vienna in 1683 and basically saved the West from the Turks. We would probably all be praying to Mecca now were it not for the Poles saving humanity. That's not the first time. Karol Wojtyla, who became Pope John Paul II, I believe he, as much as Reagan or Thatcher, was responsible for the fall of the Berlin Wall. When he went back from Rome to Poland during the Cold War. And he said, be not afraid. And he had that massive open air mass, what, 1 million Poles, or was it 3 million? I don't know. And what was his message? Be not afraid. He said to the Poles, don't be afraid anymore. And he worked in concert with Lech Walesa of Solidarity. I believe Pope John Paul helped save the world just like Jan Sobieski helped save it 330 years ago. So that's my thoughts on Poland, and I think Donald Trump has similar affection. And I should say that Poland, because it's only a generation removed from Soviet domination, still values its freedom, much more so than Western European countries. And it values its freedom against the threat to freedom today, which sure is partly from Vladimir Putin, who in some ways wishes to rebuild the Soviet empire, but I think it's more from Islamic mass migration and the cultural changes that come therefrom. And I think Poland, like Hungary, is very much on guard for that. Those are my thoughts on Poland. That's what a free-for-all Friday's about. Let's take a look at some more comments. Sheila Gunn, well, I know Sheila, says it's like a Mexican werewolf. You're talking about chupacabra. It's a Mexican werewolf or vampire-type creature that eats goats and sheep and people. It means goat sucker. A goat sucker. Well, now I finally understand my high school nickname. Okay, user unknown, have you had any interactions with David Suzuki lately? Well, you know what? I haven't seen the man, believe it or not, since I encountered him on the street in Toronto that one day a few years ago. You can still find that video on YouTube when I was with Sun News, and I accosted Suzuki on the street, and he hid in his Chevy Volt. You can find that on YouTube pretty quick. I don't know, can we call that up, Anna? I wouldn't mind playing. Can you find that clip? It'll take us a minute to find it. Suzuki was sitting in a Chevy Volt. Actually, he was standing outside and he saw me coming, he ran in the Chevy, and then I put on my most irritating voice, hello, David, and I started knocking on his window. I'll just show you a clip of that. It'll take us a minute to find it. But yeah, that was the last time I had physical contact with him because he lives, you know, on an elite street in Vancouver, Point Grey Road, and he has 5 homes, so you never know where he is. He's got a home in Australia, he has 3 homes in the Vancouver area. He's a very, very wealthy man. I don't fly in his circles. Okay, let me just show you. This is, and let me just say in advance, I know that my voice here was irritating, and that was sort of half on purpose, half accidental. I was just trying to be super friendly. So here I am accosting David Suzuki. Take a look.
Can I talk to you for a minute, David? Can I talk to you for a minute? Can I talk to you later?
Okay. Got to rush off for another appointment.
I thought you had this event right now.
Pardon me?
I thought you had an event here right now. Are you running away from me?
I did. No. I'm preparing my notes for the event.
Do you have a minute to talk? You were talking with them. How come you don't want to talk with me? Is it because I ask skeptical questions?
You distort and you don't tell the truth.
Well, tell me the truth. What's the truth? Do you have a...
I don't want to talk to Sun News because you don't tell the truth.
What's the truth? What's the truth, David? What truth are we not saying? What truth are we not saying, David? Wasn't that weird? I mean,
I kept knocking because, you know, maybe he forgot I was there. So I had to keep knocking in case he forgot I was there. And yes, I know that was my irritating voice. It's my social justice warrior's voice. Were you raised? The end of every sentence, no matter what. I've never met Dion Ghomeshi, but I imagine that he ends all his sentences like that. Okay, so yeah, so that's the last time I had a physical encounter with David Suzuki. But who knows? He's going to be in Edmonton at University of Alberta, my alma mater. I'm a graduate of that school. On June 7th, maybe we'll have a chance to have a reunion. David, it's Ezra, Vant. Rebel Media is making a Fortnite clone. I know there's an illusion here there that I'm missing. I'm just pretty square. I would like to interrupt a David Suzuki event with a dozen Suzuki two-stroke dirt bikes. Well, there you go. Yeah, don't let David Suzuki give Suzuki a bad name. There's many outstanding industrial things made by Suzuki that burn a lot of fossil fuels. So if ever you're really mad at the Suzukis of the world, think of nice Suzukis like dirt bikes. No miracle. He talks like Catherine McKenna. Yeah, you know what? And let me say this. Sometimes people have a foreign accent. And as wise people always say, if someone's speaking with a foreign accent, that means they speak one more language than you, so don't be mean, right? And there's a lot of truth there. And say someone has a speech impediment, a stutter or a stammer or a lisp, don't make fun. There, but for the grace of God, go you. But the way, and can we call up the Vocal Fry clip? Thank you for working hard, you guys, while I just make demands on you. Catherine McKenna does not have an accent. She was born in Canada, I think. She does not have a medical problem. She does not have a lisp or a stutter. She has an affectation, like Madonna Chacon, born in New York, but she has this fake mid-Atlantic accent because she's trying to be classy. Same thing with Catherine McKenna, Canada's global warming minister. She talks like a Kardashian, and that is not an illness. That is a weird choice, and it's vocal fry. I can't do vocal fry. You know, vocal fry, it's sort of a raspy, I can't do it. I'll let you know when the clip is ready, and I'll show you when it is ready. Oh, we got it. Thanks for the quick work, guys. Play a little bit of Kim Kardashian McKenna.
Climate action makes business sense. Business sense. Business sense. Business sense.
The business sense. That's our Kardashian minister, and that is spot on where Justin Trudeau is in terms of intellectual heft. I think that vocal fry actually helped Catherine McKenna get the job. How are we doing for time? It's 12:17. Oh my gosh, we're almost a third done the show, and we haven't even started really. Just for those who are joining in, what we do every weekday from 12 noon till 1 p.m. Eastern Time is we kibitz. It's called Super Chat. You can make comments along the side. If you want me to read yours for sure, you can chip in a couple bucks and it puts it in highlight and we get the dough, which helps us out here. I showed you some crazy news stories about criminals and catastrophically ill people just walking into Canada and jumping the queue because of Justin Trudeau's open borders. I have two more stories for you as well. But I see a comment, it's not a super chat comment, it's just a regular comment. It says, did Buse really apologize to Sheila? He claims he did on his Twitter account. Well, I should tell you, and that's from Real Men Fish, that is not Dion Buse's real Twitter account. On Twitter, of course, there are impersonations and parody accounts all over the place, as you surely know. That was originally why the blue checkmark was brought in, to distinguish genuine accounts from fake accounts. As far as I know, Dion Buse, that is not his real account. I know for a fact, at least in my conversations with Sheila as recently as yesterday, that to date, Dion Buse has not submitted, has not apologized, has not in any way taken responsibility. I don't know if you saw our video clip at dionbuse.com, and I encourage you to check it out. You can see the whole court ruling there. You can see the original videotape of his punching of Sheila. And I also show in my video briefly a letter of offer that Sheila's lawyer sent to Dion Buse, saying, if you just admit what you did, and we have the tape, idiot, just admit what's on tape, say sorry, and then take $1,000 and give it to a women's shelter, a charity. Give $1,000 to a charity. By the way, you get a tax credit for it. Then we're done. Then the lawsuit's over. Dion Buse refused to do that. He literally refused to acknowledge what he did. He literally refused to pay $1,000 to a women's shelter. Instead, he fought the whole trial. It was dragged out. And he lost. Of course he lost. It's all on video. That's Dion Buse. He's the opposite of apologetic. Here's a comment from Jim Trowick in Super Chat. Jim, thanks for chipping in $4.99. Jim says, I think Trudeau and his ilk are bent on destroying the middle class, the poor, and the country at large. He is rich. Taxes and fees don't bother him. there's a deeper truth there, Jim. I think if you were to ask Justin Trudeau if that's his motivation, he would say, no, of course not. And I think you'd have to be an awfully evil person to actually want to hurt the middle class or the poor. And I don't think Trudeau is deeply evil. Rather, I think he's oblivious to real life. Remember, he's a trust fund kid, son of a trust fund kid, grandson. The last Trudeau who worked for a living was Justin Trudeau's grandfather, who passed away long before Justin Trudeau was even born. So Justin Trudeau grew up under Pierre Trudeau, who lived an exotic and bizarre and louche lifestyle. Trudeau doesn't know any differently. There's nothing in his life he's ever had to work for other than as a dilettante. That's why he was a substitute teacher. That's why he started taking some environmental degree and quit when it got boring. That's why he loved the little odd jobs. Did you know that according to Trudeau, boasting in some Iranian newspaper, he has visited 90 countries as sort of like a backpacker, frat boy, dancing and drinking his way around the world? I mean, that's the lifestyle he's had. And whenever there was a bill, Daddy's lawyers and accountants just took care of it. I remember the very first time I met Justin Trudeau. Believe it or not, I was having lunch with Andrew Coyne. This was 15 years ago, at a very fancy pants restaurant in Yorkville in Toronto called Sassafras. And there was Justin Trudeau, who is related to Coyne by marriage. And it was, I wish I had sort of captured that moment in some way, because it was Trudeau sort of in full date mode, full trust fund, throw money around, hold court. I felt like there was this little moment of, there is inherited wealth, this aristocrat, wealth without responsibility, entitlement without responsibility. It's tough to be the son of a famous and wealthy man. It's tough to live up to the name. Trudeau didn't even try, is what I'm saying. Trudeau didn't even try. And to watch him interact with Andrew Coyne, who introduced us, and just to see him there, he was a playboy until he was 40. And then he said, oh, I guess I better have a job, and everyone around me says I'm their ticket to power, so I guess I'm gonna, okay, I guess my first job should be MP and then Prime Minister. That's what he's like. And my long point here is, I don't think Justin Trudeau is actually malicious towards regular people, let alone poor people. I think he just has no clue what it's like. So for example, when he would go and give a speech to a charity, and he gave a speech to a lot of charities, including his mother's favorite charity, a mental health care charity, he would charge them $20,000 or $30,000, not because he needed the money. He's a multi-millionaire. His car alone is worth more than $1 million. It's just that, well, of course, because money comes to Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau doesn't send money out. Money comes to him, affection comes to him, deference comes to him, attention comes to him, and if there's a bill, well, one of Daddy's lawyers takes care of it. So he just is so detached from how real life is. Someone's always picked up the tab for him, either someone in the public, some public trough, some taxpayer, or just someone who was paid to walk behind Justin Trudeau and clean up all his messes, to pay all his bills and debts. So for example, of course, when he became Prime Minister, he canceled child tax credits for regular people, but of course, he hired not one but two nannies, like he's Angelina Jolie or something, on the public dime. And that, of course, that's how it is, because he's Trudeau, and that's how it's, of course, he went to Billionaire's Island with the Aga Khan. I mean, duh, that's what rich people are for. How can they serve Justin Trudeau? And my long point here is that he's a mooch, but I don't even think he knows he's a mooch, because everyone around him has been happy to indulge that moochiness just so they get to bask in his Trudeau-ness. That's my psychological theory about Justin Trudeau. Let's look at some more chit-chat. Oh, I think I missed a super chat. I was going on for so long. Pepper52435 said, Ezra, how many subscribers does the Rebel have? Well, there's there's a few different ways of measuring. One is on YouTube. And as you can see in that little orange rectangle, we have 907,000 YouTube subscribers. And that's why I'm slightly confused by the fact that we generally don't get more than 500 people watching this super chat, and I'm wondering, is it the time of day? Is it the notifications we're doing wrong? Is Google throttling us? It's absolutely possible. I know they've demonetized us. Is it me? Am I too boring? Is it the time zones of our people, or did they sign up for other talent on the Rebel? I don't know, but I would like to grow that. Now, in fairness to what we're doing here, we've only been doing this super chat thing. This is our second week. We haven't really promoted it. We sent one email out. If I look at the kind of traffic that, for example, Ben Shapiro gets, and he's such a big name in the United States, he gets about 2,000 or 3,000 following him on his live chats on YouTube. So, you know, if we're 400 or 500 at our height, I don't feel bad given it's our second week. I believe that on the internet, and sometimes people that ask me for advice, Ezra, how do I break through as a video personality? My number one piece of advice is do it every day, every single day. So you get the discipline and the practice of it, and so people can sort of count on the fact that, yeah, there's going to be some new video content from you. It's like 7-Eleven. We just go to a 7-Eleven or a Mac store because we know they're open all the time. You don't have to sort of guess, is it open? You know that, and that's my theory about successful people on the internet, is if they have something every day, then you're probably going to be more likely to go there, and of course you'll get better from practice. Someone with a very long unpronounceable name says, we don't get notifications. Well, that's something maybe you should look into, or we should look into. Are you clicking the bell? Are you clicking the notifications? I'm not sure if we're doing it right, because we do about, I don't know, 10 or 15 videos a day. Maybe we're, you know, maybe it's too many notifications. Maybe people think there's too many notifications. If we're doing 10 videos a day, do you want 10 notifications from us? I don't know. It's something to look into. Eva CXOI 2.0 says, Mr. Levant, I signed up for notification, but I am not getting YouTube alerts for your live show, if that helps. Okay, you're the second person who just said that. So thank you for that tip. We should look into it. Yeah, because I think if 907,000 people got a notification that we were having a chat, I think we'd get more than 200 people showing up. I would like to think. Even if there's haters, that's half the fun. I think it's more fun reading hate mail than fan mail, don't you think? Frank Jalapeno says, you're relevant, not popular. Okay, that could be true. Mr. Dallas 420 says, Ezra, just stream Snipe Ice Poseidon. You'll have tons of viewers after that. I gotta tell you, I don't know what that is. That's how old I am. I don't know what Snipe Ice Poseidon is. If I weren't on live right now, I would Google that, so I would seem much savvier than I do. There's a new super chat. Any chance Rebel could chat with Bill Whittle? That's from V6. I love Bill Whittle, and I've chatted I've actually met him like once or twice. I don't even know if he would remember. I think he is so smart. I don't know if he would come on as a guest, but I would. Let me take that under advisement. I'd like to have him. You know, can I tell you my favorite Bill Whittle video ever? Do you know who I'm talking about? I think he's based in LA. Let me just check what time it is before I go on too long. It's 12:28, we're half done, but let me make this story shorter than when I bumped into Justin Trudeau that one day. I met Trudeau since then. I ran my fingers through his hair, but that's another story. We'll talk about that later. And he was awake, by the way. Bill Whittle. He has a video. You gotta find it. In fact, can you find it, Hannah, while I'm chatting? I think he calls it the 3-day challenge, or the 72-hour challenge or something. He says, I mean, I think it's just a thought experiment. I don't think he actually wants it to happen. But he said, imagine if everyone were sent out into the wilderness for 3 days, like 1% of your year, just on your own. No benefits of high tech, no electricity, no power tools, no car. Just for 1% of your year, just to remember how amazing and valuable civilization is. And all these anti-industry, anti-capitalist, anti-oil, anti-pipeline, anti-gas, crazy leftists would, first of all, get a reminder at how amazing capitalist industry is, how safe, how clean, how comfortable it is. People sometimes think that the natural state of nature is somehow preferable to nature that is developed by people. It's a 5.5-minute video. Of course, we're not going to show all of it, but Hannah, can you just go forward to when he announces his thesis? I would just like to show people Bill Whittle in his own words. So not only, so we'll tee that video up, folks, in 1 second, but not only would it remind people of how important industrial society is, but it would also, I think, be a refreshing reminder to individual people, and I put myself in this category, of how our parents, and more likely our grandparents and our great-grandparents, they actually knew how to do stuff. They actually knew how to fix stuff. Maybe they could make a fire without matches, you know. Boy Scout stuff, tie a rope, make a lean-to. I guess what I'm saying is Bill Whittle's idea, and I don't think he would actually like to command everyone to leave the city for 3 days, but it was a great thought experiment to make people connect to reality and remind them that what we have in our lifestyle is not an accident and it's not normal. It's actually the result of generations of people working and challenging and struggling to give their descendants a better life. We should not take it for granted, and we should not regard it as normal. And let me know when you've got a clip, and it doesn't have to be a key clip. I just want to show people who Bill Whittle is if they don't know, and just give them a minute of that talk. While we're lining that up, let me read a little bit more. Tegan B says, is there a way to only get notifications from certain Rebel content creators like Sheila? There are too many notifications for the videos I don't care about, like Hollywood gossip and movie reviews. You know what? Let me think about that some more, because I can see where you're coming from. We have a diversity of contributors. We've got, I don't know, I haven't counted, but maybe we've got 10 people contributing. And if you don't want to hear from everybody, you know, let me think about that, because I would like it if it was easier for people to get just what they want. Maybe more people would sign up. Anyways, I was rambling on about Bill Whittle, and our team here has found the clip. Give us, I mean, don't play the whole thing, but maybe give us 30 or 60 seconds of that Bill Whittle clip just to show people what I'm talking about.
And during those 3.5 days, I would force everyone to live out in the woods in a cabin. I wouldn't make anyone chop wood. If you want to shiver through 3 nights, that's your business. I'd make people carry their own water up from the river. Hey, if you don't want to go to the trouble to boil it, be my guest. Recovering from amoebic dysentery will be part of your education. I'd make everybody grow and harvest their own food, or dig up roots, or collect berries, or not. You can sit and complain about it and not eat for 3.5 days if you'd prefer. And like most modern Americans, I have a soft spot for little furry animals. But I would make people trap and kill and skin them in order to stay alive. That goes for chickens and fish as well. You see, reality can be ugly and bloody and horrible. And that's something that those protesters have been protected from their entire lives, but not anymore. Playtime is over now. Now, I think that after 3.5 days spent working hard, gathering food, chopping wood, and carrying water, night times spent with no iPad, no smartphone, no Wi-Fi, no DVDs or Xboxes, I think that would be just enough to make people like this appreciate the fact that there are people out there who will do these things for you. I think 3.5 days out there every year for 50 years would make you very grateful that there are groups of people willing to pump and purify your water, provide endless and affordable electrical power so you can be 72 degrees all the time, that there are people who will kill, clean, cook, package, and deliver food so that you don't have to see the blood or the dirt, all of those things. And that these groups of people who provide these services are called corporations, who feed their own selves and their own families by doing these ugly, difficult, unpleasant things for you and charging more than it costs.
Isn't that the truth, eh? Isn't he a great communicator? I like the sound of his voice. I like his look. He's a great presenter. That video is a few years old, but I have watched it several times. And I think it's a thought experiment. I really don't think Bill really would put everyone out in a cabin for 3 days. But, you know, people used to voluntarily go out into cabins. Boy Scouts, I mean, I was in the Boy Scouts. It was, you know, it was learning things. It was learning skills, learning how to tie knots, learning how to try and light. I mean, it was a very uncomfortable kind of fun, though sometimes the fondest memories are being uncomfortable doing something with other people together. But it is a reminder that the life of urban luxury we live is not the normal state of affairs. I haven't been to an anti-oil protest in a while, and I'm not including my knocking on that David Suzuki car. David, knock, 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 that was too much fun. But I go, whenever, last time I was at an anti-oil protest was at Queen's Park in Toronto, and I would go up to the protesters and I would just go from head to toe, from their sunglasses to their backpacks to their iPhones and their cameras, and I would just ask them about all the different things they were wearing and holding that could only be made from plastic, which comes from petrochemicals, nylon, plastic, so many things, any kind of metal. And I use this analogy a lot, and I invite you to use this analogy. I find it effective, or at least it's a bit of a revelation, and I always remind myself of it. Occasionally I encounter vegetarians in my life, and I like to think of myself as a tolerant person. I don't like to be, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. In fact, we're a very tolerant workplace. We have a vegetarian here, and no one's mean to her. My point is, if someone's a vegetarian, if they're a PETA activist, which is even deeper, and they're trying to convince you to be vegetarian, trying to convince you not to wear leather or fur, all right. I have never seen a PETA activist who, while they're telling me not to eat meat or wear fur or leather, is chomping on a drumstick, right? Chomping on a hamburger. No, because they're living it. In fact, that's sort of the joke about vegans. How do you know if someone's vegan? Oh, they'll tell you. And that's the thing, is there's a consistency there. They may be wrong, but they're living it, right? They're walking the talk. And let me put the shoe on the other foot now, and this leads us to one of our stories today. When was the last time you saw an anti-oil, anti-industrial, anti-fracking activist living it while doing it? When was the last time you saw a protester with only natural fibers, not using an Apple iPhone to tweet something from a McDonald's Wi-Fi? And what a good segue to talk about another subject. Let me check the clock, it's 12:36. Al Gore. Al Gore. I saw his Inconvenient Truth when it came out. Half of it's him in business class in a jet flying around while working on his Mac. That's the anti-oil activist. Can we put up Al Gore's tweet? This was just yesterday. Al Gore, who has several homes, jets around. He's actually on the board of Apple. Talk about a huge industrial company. And this is what he wrote. The Kinder Morgan pipeline is a pipeline in British Columbia for our American viewers. He said, the Kinder Morgan pipeline carrying dirty tar sands oil would be a step backward in our efforts to solve the climate crisis. I stand with Horgan, that's the Premier of BC, Mayor Gregor, that's the Mayor of Vancouver, and all of the Canadians, including the First Nations, who are fighting to stop this destructive pipeline. Stop Kinder Morgan. Just hold that up there for a bit. Dirty tar sands oil. There's no dirt in the oil. There's oil in the oil, like it's oily, but it's not dirt, and it's not tar. Tar is chemically different, so you've got an ignoramus here, but he's using all the bait words, dirty tar. There is no dirt in it, there is no tar in it. It's bituminous oil, it's heavy oil, similar to the heavy oil that is the heaviest oil in the world in terms of viscosity and density. You know, oil has different names. You can take the tweet down now. It has different, you've heard of West Texas Intermediate, North Sea Brent. Those are different kinds of oil. And the intermediate, it refers to how heavy it is. You know what the heaviest oil is in the world in terms of viscosity and density and carboniferousness? It's called California Heavy. It's from California, where Apple is located, where one of Al Gore's many homes is. So Al Gore, he has a home in Tennessee, he has a home in California, he has a lot of homes, he's always jetting around. But let's just talk about his California home. The heaviest oil in the world comes from California. California does not produce enough oil for its own needs, so it imports its oil, half of its oil. Do you know where it imports it from? From Saudi Arabia, obviously, look at the map. American imports oil from Saudi Arabia for California's use. Can you remember the last time Al Gore criticized Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Venezuela, Nigeria, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait? I'm just listing OPEC countries. Every single OPEC country is either a full-out dictatorship or an authoritarian regime. Nigeria is sort of democracy-ish. That's the closest you're going to get to a democracy in OPEC, I think. When was the last time that Al Gore criticized a pipeline in a conflict oil country? See, the thing is, the daily global demand for oil is about 100 million barrels every single day, and the oil sands maybe makes about 2 and a bit million, so about 2% of the world's oil comes from the oil sands. 98% comes from elsewhere. 10 million barrels a day from Saudi Arabia, 10 million barrels a day from Russia. When was the last time Al Gore took a run at Saudi oil, took a run at OPEC oil, took a run at Russian oil? I can't recall it. I don't recall it. Why does he only go after ethical oil from Canada instead of conflict oil from OPEC? Well, I know the answer. I know the answer, and I think you do too. Maybe you know this. Al Gore used to have a failing TV station, and when I say failing, I'm not just being Trumpy and giving him a mean nickname. It was a disaster in terms of rating. I think it was called Current TV or something. And he sold it to Al Jazeera, which is the state broadcaster of Qatar, which is not only an oil-rich OPEC dictatorship, it's one of the sponsors. Qatar, as you know, is one of the sponsors of ISIS and other awful terrorists. They paid more than $100 million for this money-losing, nobody watches at Current TV. And Al Gore personally made 70 million US dollars. It's almost 100 million Canadian from Qatar, because that was the cable package that basically, when Al Jazeera came to America, they didn't need Al Gore's crummy studios. You can build a studio for a few $1 million. That's nothing to an Arab oil tycoon. What they wanted was his cable deals and his distribution, so they were sneaking into American homes. Al Jazeera wanted to get their propaganda into American homes. Al Jazeera, I mean, that's sort of like Russia today is for Putin. Al Jazeera is for the royal family of Qatar. Al Gore, this anti-oil activist who did an inconvenient truth, enriched himself by at least $70 million of oil money. By the way, he turned down an inquiry from Glenn Beck, who wanted to buy it, because Al Gore literally prefers tyrannical, authoritarian dictatorships in the Middle East to a mere conservative in America who's a liberal in terms of believes in freedom. Al Gore chose a foreign dictatorship over a fellow American. So it's a bit of chutzpah. It's a bit of chutzpah, Al Gore telling us not to have our dirty oil. It's not dirty. It's not, there's no tar in it. It's less heavy than California oil, and it's more ethical and moral than Saudi oil that he prefers. Like I say, it would be like a PETA activist chomping on a big drumstick saying, don't you wear leather. It's bad for animals, while he's eating a big drumstick. Hey, it's 12:42, and I've been talking nonstop. I want to tell you about an event we got coming up on June 2nd for those in Ontario. Oh, and we've got some more announcements and more talent. I'm going to save those announcements till Monday, but let me show you an ad. And it has some highlights from last year's event, including our friend Jordan Peterson. Take a look.
We're going to discuss topics that the political elites and the media party don't want us to discuss. Political correctness be damned.
Passion isn't enough of a principle to guide the world by.
Perhaps we are in better touch with the pulse of the country.
We are in this fight with you, and you're all in this fight together.
If you see over the last few years, there's been this populist movement going around the world.
That's the status of the left at this point, is I don't know if you're the Onion or the New York Times.
Postmodernism is a sophisticated philosophy. Now, it's wrong, but it's deeply wrong.
We're simply people with another point of view. Hey, welcome back. That's just a little sneak peek at therebellive.com. It's coming up on June 2nd. While that ad was running, I was skimming some more comments. John Zealand says Rebel should start putting some videos on other platforms. I agree. We do put some of them up on Facebook, and we do embed some on Twitter natively. Twitter has some limits on it, but one of the things we were talking about doing is this live broadcast, streaming it in 3 platforms simultaneously, if we can do that, and I think we can, on YouTube, on Facebook, and even on Periscope, which is affiliated with Twitter. So I think that's one way we're going to tweak this. I'm still thinking about the time of day. I'm not sure if that's the best. I don't know what time would be better. Let me ask our production team if they can scare up the raw video of Dion Ghomeshi at the Women's March in 2017. And we were chatting a little bit about Dion Ghomeshi, and some people might have thought, well, who's that? What's that? We had some good news this week. We sued a male feminist alt-left thug. It's a lot of adjectives, but each one of them is true. His name was Dion Ghomeshi, and he's got a lip ring. When you have a lip ring on a fella, I think you know pretty much 90% about what you need to know just from the lip ring. Would you agree with me? Would you agree with me? So this fella with a lip ring was at the Women's March. Now, he's a guy at a Women's March, but that's how male feminists work. Dion Ghomeshi was a women's studies major, obviously, for access to women, and as sort of a preemptive strike against anyone who said you're a crazy sexist wife beater or girlfriend beater. Same thing with Eric Steinemann, the disgraced attorney general from New York who just resigned for beating the women. He was such a feminist in public so that he could attract women, and when he punched his girlfriends, he'd say, I'm a feminist. Joyce Reeves donated $20 in the super chat. Thank you for that. Same with Harvey Weinstein, who I think has been credibly accused of actual rape. Super feminist, would attend all the feminist events, said he was, and anyhow, this Dion Ghomeshi, male feminist, goes to the Women's March in Edmonton and encounters our Alberta Bureau Chief, Sheila Gunn-Reid, who is talking to people about the Women's March and just asking questions. And Dion Ghomeshi identifies that she's with the rebel and doesn't like that. And let me show you about 1.5 minutes of footage that follow. This is raw footage. This is what happened at the Women's March in January 2017.
Ezra Levant.
Okay, so wouldn't you say that it would be feminine? No, I'm just asking you a question. Do I seem unreasonable to you? Because they seem really pleasant. Am I coming across as pleasant right now, Dirk?
Yeah, absolutely. We're just trying to have a conversation here.
I'm trying to have a conversation with you.
Go away. Get out of my face. I will break your camera. You do not have the right to.
Whoa!
Let's calm down. Calm down.
You don't have the right to film everywhere you go.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, I do. You just hit me in the face. No, don't tell me to calm down. I'm not telling you.
No, you guys should move away.
You deserve to be angry. You deserve to be angry.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to take
Freaking wizardry.
nothing
No,
more
don't get it between me. Get it between me. That guy, I'm a feminist. That guy just hit me in the face.
I'm pushing him away.
Doesn't matter. Do I deserve it? Yeah, I'm the problem, you victim blamer. That guy just hit me in the face.
You have footage of it?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to security next.
Good. Go do that, okay? I'm just trying to make sure nothing happens and it doesn't escalate, okay? Let's take a minute. Get security.
So you're at a women's march. You see all those pink pussy hats there? They're for women's rights, eh? They literally observe a man punch a woman. And what do? Did they assist? Did they in any way comfort or assist Sheila? No. They comforted, they patted Dion Ghomeshi. Did you see that? They comforted and consoled him, whisked him away, and blocked Sheila from accessing him. Ezra's first irregulars chips in £2. Keep up the good work. After chat opened all. Thank you. Not a word or a squawk or no assistance for Sheila. No condemnation for that thug. They helped him scurry away. No one called security. Sheila went to get security herself. This was at a women's march. A man punched a woman at a women's march, but because he was a male feminist and she was conservative, they helped him get away. Now that guy is so stupid. He did all that with the camera rolling. As you may know, we put that video online at findthethug.com. We offered a $1,000 reward. Within minutes, people turned him in because he's not well liked even by his friends. It was his friends who turned him in, I should tell you. Many of them. We had a lot of people say, oh, that's Dion Ghomeshi. Dion Ghomeshi was found and was charged with a crime, and he was convicted. But through a procedural hiccup that should not have happened, Sheila was not advised of the court date. So Sheila was not there to give evidence. The video you just saw was not presented to the judge. Sheila did not have a chance to make a victim impact statement. And so that little thug there got off without any jail time, and he just had to do 30 hours of community service for punching a woman in the face at the Women's March. So we sued him in civil court. So the criminal court, we didn't get enough justice, so we sued him in civil court for assault and battery, and the trial was held about a month ago, 2-day trial, and the judge found for Sheila. Now, getting punched in the face, you're not gonna get $1 million for that. But Sheila got a few $1,000s in damages and what's called punitive damages because his conduct was, in the words of the judge, reprehensible. And the judge took specific pains to say that this was an attack on journalism and free speech and Sheila's right to cover. It was a very good ruling. And the judge also specifically mentioned that justice was not done in the criminal court because Sheila wasn't there and the video wasn't seen. Now, Dion Ghomeshi has not yet paid his damages to Sheila, and I don't know if he will. He's still in resistance mode. Like I say, we offered to Dion Ghomeshi, if he simply apologized and made a donation to a women's shelter, we would have dropped Sheila would have dropped the suit, but he's sort of in resistance. He thinks fighting against Sheila and punching girls is his way of fighting against, I don't know, Trump or something, I don't know. But if you want to read the court case, I encourage you to go to dionghomeshi.com. You damn rights. I bought the URL for his name, and for the rest of his life, or at least until he apologizes and sets things right, for the rest of his life, his name, Dion Ghomeshi, DIONBEWS.com, will have the story of his crime, punching Sheila. You can read the full court judgment there. And if you want to help us pay for our lawyers, because you know what? It cost us 36 grand to sue him. We had an excellent lawyer and his fees were reasonable, but I'm afraid that's how much it costs to file a statement of claim and go to the pretrial hearings and run a 2-day trial, and we still have to collect from him. So if you want to help out Sheila, please go to, Sheila, help out us really with our legal fees, but Sheila, we were delighted to help her. It was an act of loyalty, I think, to defend her against this thug. Wouldn't you? I mean, don't you think we had to sue him? Don't you think? Could you imagine letting that go? Could you imagine just letting some guy punch a woman at a women's march because she was conservative? Unthinkable. And what's so gross about this, I think it's the grossest part, not a word from any feminist organization in the country, not one word. Actually, it's not true. The organizer of the Women's March had a word. She denied it even happened. She said it was all made up. Not a word from any journalistic organization. Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, Canadian Association of Journalists, Canadian Civil Liberties Association, not a word. Do you think that if a left-wing reporter, a woman, were punched in the face by some alt-right violent thug, do you think that would be ignored? Or do you think rather that would be the top of the news forever and a national teachable moment? And do you think the victim of that punch would be given some free speech prize and be made some honorary professor of journalism at some school? Do you doubt that if it had been a left-wing journalist punched by a right-wing thug, that everyone in Canada would know the name of the thug and the victim? But because the shoe's on the other foot, because it was Sheila, a conservative with the rebel, who was punched, and it was that little thug, Dion Ghomeshi, who did the punching in the name of social justice or whatever, the name of feminism, I don't know what. Not a peep. Well, you know what? Justice is required whether or not the fancy people want it, and I feel like we got some justice. Again, I encourage you to go to dionghomeshi.com to read the ruling. It is 12:53. You know what? I want to take a short break because we have another ad, and we're imminently, our first documentary is going to be for sale in DVD and video on demand. I don't know if it's for sale immediately, as in today. It might be next week, but let me show an ad of what I'm talking about. Take a look.
صراحة
صار الضرب الصبح الفجر فاحنا ما قدرنا نطلع يعني.
يعني قالوا تأسلمون يشترون الإسلام. لا. بيش بابو ألا أول رحم الله.
Hey, welcome back. I was just leafing through the comments. I'm not sure if I mentioned Joyce Reeves was kind enough to chip in $20 through a super chat. I appreciate that. You know what, we say Fridays is sort of open forum Fridays, so let me just read a few more here. Mac WM says, Canada has been sliding left for decades. It's more than dispiriting. You're right. I think the Harper years sort of stopped the slide to the left, but it didn't reverse much, did it? It just sort of gave us a pause. Tammy Patinsk Zanbelt says, Kinsey research responsible for depraved sex ed curriculums being pushed by UN. Well, in the case of Ontario, it was by Ben Levin, who was the Deputy Minister of Education, who oversaw the process of the new sex ed curriculum. And shockingly, he was prosecuted and convicted for child pornography and trying to lure young children to meet with him to be molested. Just shocking, shocking. Andrea Hetherington said, Dion Buse can't pay his fines because he spends all his time virtue signaling and punching conservatives. Well, we'll see if he pays. And I think he's, I mean, I'm stubborn. I actually admire stubbornness as a personality trait. In many cases, I think more of us should be stubborn and fewer of us should be compliant, or at least we shouldn't always be compliant. But how can you be stubborn in the face of that videotape, a criminal conviction, and now a civil court conviction? How can you be so stubborn? Sheila offered him, if he just admitted what he did, said sorry, and gave $1,000 to a women's shelter, he could go. How can you be so stubborn to turn that down and say, no, I want a 2-day trial. I'm fighting this thing. We saw you on tape punch her after threatening to punch her at a women's march. You know what? I don't know if he's going to pay I think it's $3,500, $4,500 that he owes. Imagine that. If he resisted, well, I mean, there's a way to enforce a judgment in the law. You can collect. I mean, he's a luthier, which means he makes handmade guitars. I guess Sheila will own his guitar company if he doesn't pay cash. I don't know. Maybe it's good for, you know, fireplace. I'm guessing that word burns very nicely. It's 12:57. Hunky Monkey says it went viral to catch the kisser. I don't know what you're talking about there. Gavin Giant says, put him the nick and see how long he lasts. I think you're talking about putting Dion Buse in prison. I think you're right. I don't think he would do well in there. Maybe they have an all-soy diet, though, because I don't think he's a meat eater, speaking of vegans. Daniel Grant said, Harper would have kept us safe. I didn't agree with everything he did, but he kept us safe. There's some truth there. Although there were terrorist attacks on his watch. I don't blame Stephen Harper for that. I mean, the terrorist attack by an ISIS-inspired terrorist on Parliament Hill that killed Corporal Nathan Cirillo, that was when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. But you're right, he didn't open up the borders and bring in tens of thousands of unvetted Muslim migrants from Syria. True Brit says the globalists are days away from starting World War III in the Middle East, so why do we still talk about trivial things? All I'm seeing is the military taking control of the food and water, draft or cannibalism. Don't quite understand all of that. I agree with you that things are on the move. I don't think we're on the brink of World War III. In fact, I think that probably, you know, that Union of Scientists or something used to have the doomsday clock, how many minutes to midnight, and they would move the hour handle, the minute hand, depending on world tensions. North Korea is having a sit down with Donald Trump next month in Singapore. Iran's being marginalized. I actually think the likelihood of World War III is lower now than at any time over the last decade. That's just my own views. Folks, it's 12:59. The hour goes by so quickly. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back on Monday. We're going to keep trying it at this noon hour slot. I would like your advice if there's a different time slot. I think we're going to try and add Facebook and Twitter too. I just want to, maybe there's a notifications thing. I just think with 907,000 subscribers, maybe those folks aren't being notified, or maybe we send out too many notifications about too many videos. I don't know. We'll try and figure that out. I mean, I like doing it. It's a nice way to spend an hour. And obviously the folks who are here find it rewarding enough. I would just like to get our viewership up tenfold. Maybe maybe 2 weeks in isn't early and is too early to make that judgment. So I'll see you on Monday. And if you're a subscriber to my show, please tune in tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we will talk to two people on the ground in Israel about what's going on with Iran and the embassy move. And I think you'll like my monologue tonight too. It's about environmental extremists in Vancouver. That's it for today. Have a great weekend. If I don't see you tonight at 8 p.m. until Monday, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, keep fighting for freedom.